Against every expectation, Germany still runs 58 first-generation ICE-1 trains daily. Machines that burn 40% more energy than their modern rivals and were supposed to cruise into museums years ago. France scrapped its original TGVs. Italy demolished the ETR 450. Even Japan's legendary Shinkansen Zero series stands silent behind glass. Yet in September 2025, while Europe obeys climate mandates and shuns the past, Germany's oldest high-speed fleet races on, irreplaceable even amid a €760 million operating loss and a public meltdown that just cost Deutsche Bahn's CEO his job. Is this logistical madness, a crisis gamble, or something the rest of the continent missed? Here's why the ICE-1's survival defies all logic, and what's really at stake when it finally stops running. Regulators aren't just frowning, they're circling with clipboards. The European Union's climate targets are clear. By 2030, every new high-speed train should emit less than 20 grams of CO2 per seat kilometer and use under 0.10 kilowatt-hours of energy per seat kilometer. The ICE-1 misses both marks by a mile. Even after recent upgrades, each run burns through 0.11 to 0.14 kilowatt-hours per seat kilometer and emits 26 to 32 grams of CO2. That's about 40% more energy and emissions than the ICE-4, the fleet Germany wants but can't yet have in enough numbers. The gap isn't academic. Under the EU's Fit for 55 plan and Energy Efficiency Directive, Germany is legally bound to slash transport emissions by 38% from 2005 levels. Rail is supposed to be the poster child, clean, electric, future-proof. But every ICE-1 departure drags the numbers in the wrong direction. France's TGV Sud-Est and Italy's ETR 450 both vanished from the timetable years ago, partly because they couldn't keep up with the new efficiency rules. Brussels isn't just setting targets, it's threatening penalties and funding cuts for non-compliance. By 2030, any legacy train failing to meet the thresholds is supposed to be retired or relegated to special, non-core services. That means every ICE-1 still running on the main line is an exception, not the rule. A loophole justified only by the argument that there's no practical way to replace the seats they provide. Climate NGOs call the ICE-1 an anachronism under Fit for 55. DB's own leaders admit the trains are out of alignment with EU law. The pressure isn't going away. Each year, the regulatory screws tighten. Every extra kilowatt-hour and every extra gram of CO2 becomes harder to defend. The clock isn't just ticking for the ICE-1, it's thundering down the track. Deutsche Bahn's summer numbers land like a punch to the gut. On-time performance, once a point of national pride, has slipped from nearly 79% in 2017 to just 66% in the first half of 2025. 1 out of every 3 long-distance trains now runs late. The causes stack up: endless construction zones, failing switches, and a rolling stock shortage that leaves even flagship routes exposed. But the real shock comes from the financials. Industry analysts estimate a loss in the range of €760 million for the first half of the year. That's not just a blip. It's a full-blown crisis for a company that's supposed to be Germany's mobility backbone. Inside the boardroom, patience is running thin. Supervisory meetings are tense, with leaked minutes revealing heated arguments over the ICE-1. Some board members, backed by outside consultants, push for a phased replacement, arguing that pouring more money into aging trains is throwing good money after bad. But finance chiefs and operations leaders push back, armed with their own models. Lose the ICE-1 fleet now, and you lose up to 33,000 daily seats. There's no replacement ready, no quick fix. The risk isn't just inconvenience, it's a network collapse that ripples through every major city from Hamburg to Munich. Richard Lutz, the CEO, finds himself in the crosshairs. Punctuality is tanking, losses are mounting, and the political pressure is relentless. Calls for his resignation fill the business pages, even as official confirmation remains absent. In his final weeks, Lutz meets with depot chiefs and operations leads, searching for any way to avoid mass cancellations. The consensus is brutal. Without the ICE-1, Germany's high-speed network breaks. There's no margin for error, no spare trains, no financial room to maneuver. The modernization plan, controversial, expensive, and out of step with Brussels, becomes not just a strategy, but a last line of defense against total operational meltdown. Frankfurt Hauptbahnhof, 7:45 a.m. Every platform is spoken for, every track a lifeline. This isn't just a scheduling headache. It's a numbers game with no margin for error. Germany's busiest rail hub runs at 95 to 98% capacity during the morning rush. That leaves no room for extra trains, no slack for delays, and no way to break up big departures into smaller, more frequent runs. The only way to move this many people is with giants, trains that swallow crowds whole and keep the arteries of the network open. Enter the IC1. Each set, after the latest round of modernization, seats 503 passengers. On some configurations, that number climbs past 600. Multiply that by 58 train sets still in daily operation, and you're looking at more than 30,000 seats crossing the country every day, roughly a quarter of all long-distance capacity funneled through Frankfurt. Remove the IC1, and the seat deficit isn't theoretical. It's 4,500 missing places per peak hour, with no replacement ready. DB's own planners warn, retire these trains now, and you trigger a cascade of cancellations, forced rebookings, and standing room only on core routes like Berlin, Frankfurt, Munich. But numbers only tell half the story. Step inside, and the ICE-1 offers something no other train in Europe can match. The last full-service restaurant car at 280 kilometers per hour. Not just a bistro, but a proper kitchen, white tablecloths, and panoramic windows framing the landscape. For some, it's a throwback to a golden age of travel. For others, it's a reason to pay premium fares, 200 euros or more for a family booking with a meal. The revenue from these cars isn't trivial. Last year, restaurant sales across the ICE-1 network topped 10 million euros, with a loyal following that includes tourists, business travelers, and rail fans from as far away as Japan. The dining experience is so distinctive that it drives bookings, even as newer, more efficient trains roll out without it. Frontline staff know the stakes. Lose the ICE, and you lose not just seats, but a piece of rail culture that keeps both the network and the brand alive. In a system stretched to the breaking point, the operational logic is cold and clear. The ICE-1 isn't a relic. It's the last, best tool for keeping Germany's high-speed backbone intact. Hamburg-Eidelstedt, dawn. Inside the biggest high-speed train depot in Germany, Jochen Klinger walks the shop floor with a checklist in hand and 33 years of ICE-1 know-how in his head. His team, engineers, technicians, apprentices, move with practiced rhythm. They're not just keeping museum pieces alive, they're buying Deutsche Bahn time. Look at the numbers. A brand new IC4 costs upwards of 50 million euros per train set. Modernizing an IC1? 3 million, start to finish. That's not a rounding error, it's a lifeline. The full upgrade program, greenlit in 2020 and running through 2025, totals 320 million euros for the whole fleet. For that, DB gets another 5 to 10 years of reliable service. Interiors refreshed. Traction electronics swapped out for modern IGBT converters. ETCS Level 2 signaling. New passenger information displays. Accessibility upgrades. All rolled out while the trains keep running, with each set spending just weeks in the depot before returning to the main line. Klinger's crew has developed a sixth sense for these trains. When a supplier stops making power modules or kitchen hardware, they reverse engineer the part or 3D print a replacement. The result? Availability rates north of 99%, even as the fleet pushes past its original design life. And because the ICE-1s are fully owned and long since depreciated, every kilometer they run now is pure operational leverage. No lease payments, no bank breathing down DB's neck. This isn't just maintenance, it's technical triage. The LDV program, Lebensdauerverlängerung, doesn't pretend the ICE-1 can run forever. It stretches the timeline, keeps the network afloat, and pushes the real replacement cliff to 2030 or beyond. But every year, the clock ticks louder. Klinger and his team can keep the trains rolling. They can't change the laws of physics or Brussels' patience. For now, the IC1s survive, not because it's logical, but because there's no alternative that DB can afford. As of September 2025, 58 IC1 train sets continue to run daily across Germany, more first-generation high-speed trains than the rest of Europe combined. Over 320 million euros has been invested in their modernization, yet each train still consumes 40% more energy than newer models. Despite mounting European Union climate targets and Deutsche Bahn's financial losses, 760 million euros in the first half of 2025 alone, these trains remain essential for capacity on routes like Berlin to Munich and Hamburg to Frankfurt. The IC1's unique full restaurant car and central maintenance at Hamburg-Eidelstedt reflect a blend of tradition and institutional expertise. However, questions persist. Will Deutsche Bahn meet its 2030 retirement goal? Or does crisis management simply delay the inevitable? Some details, such as the full impact of ongoing infrastructure renovations and future fleet funding, are still unclear. After 33 years in service, the ICE-1 stands as both a symbol of German engineering and a reminder of the complex trade-offs facing Europe's railways today.